Welcome back to another episode of The Playbook. And do we have one in store for you all today? Bit of a life update before I begin. Last week, this is my second attempt at recording this podcast. Last week, severely dosed, and nobody wants to hear that sort of voice on a podcast for half an hour. But in terms of a life update, the last episode would have been just prior to my first Olympic triathlon. Anybody who's been listening or watching some of the YouTubes would have seen that I've been training towards Olympic triathlon. Well, I was training, kind of doing triathlon training towards a half Ironman, which is to be confirmed the exact date. Logistically wise, it actually seems more complicated because there really is no Ironman 70.3s that would be in the local vicinity anyways in the time frame that I would need. There's one in Oman, but it's just not going to be in time. But the Olympic triathlon went really, really well, far better than expected. I think I had such fear, and the feeling of impending doom was great in this one. And I haven't ever started the start line and felt like, you know what, I'd love to just turn around and just walk away and just not do this thing. Just purely from how intimidated I was by the swim and looking at the course the day before and seeing visually how far it looked in terms of the water, I was intimidated, to say the least. Like, I was pretty petrified, to be honest, and put myself at the back of the pack because it was self-seeding. That's where the social swimmers were, because, I mean, 3 months ago, I barely knew how to swim. I could swim, but it was just labored. Like, to swim 50 meters, I was absolutely wrecked, and I'd have to take a rest for like 30 to 50 seconds. And then week by week, twice a week, from getting lessons and from getting more comfortable in the water and getting better with my breathing techniques and all of that, literally learning how to swim from the basics, because I'd never really swam any sort of long distance. So that was definitely going to be the most intimidating factor. And I said, as long as I get to swim out of the way, that'll be fine. But the second I got into the water, I started to feel like, okay, like, I mean, I actually can do this. I can actually do this. Like, I had done that length of a swim. I'd done longer than that length of a swim. But I think seeing it and visualizing it and seeing it there was so intimidating to me. But the second I got into the water, when I started passing a lot of people who I had started with, I was like, oh shit, I can really do this. Like, I was expecting them to be elite swimmers, swimming like in 120 per 100 meters, but it wasn't that at all. And when I started catching and passing people, it just gave me that confidence boost that I needed, and being surrounded by people and the elbows in the face and the feet in the face, like, that was fun. Like, I really enjoyed that. So getting into that, the kind of adrenaline spike that I had, and going into it, the second I stepped into the water, I was like, okay, it's not actually that bad. Now, I think the big fundamental lesson that I took from this was it would have been so easy for me to turn away. Nobody really would have known if I just didn't do it. I would have known. And the only way to get through those fears that you have in life, it can be extrapolated into any sort of avenue of your life, is by taking action. And the second I took that action and took the step forward and immersed myself deeply in that, then it felt okay. And then I felt unbelievable. Like, the swim ended up being actually longer than expected because they fucked the course. It was an extra 700 meters. So instead of a 1.5 kilometer swim, it was 2.2 kilometer swim. And everybody was kind of complaining about that. But for me, I was just happy I'd done it. And then just got on the bike, really good bike. Definitely could have improved on the bike, to be honest. It wasn't exactly where I wanted it to be. First transition was quite slow as well. And then the run, I really pushed the boat out in the run. Like, I think I was aiming for 5 or 5:10 per kilometers, and I started pushing the run from the very first kilometer just to see if I would blow up or if I would have it in my legs. And I had it in my legs at 4:45 per kilometer, and I maintained that relatively till the end. So overall, it was good. And overall, in my age group, which was 19 to 29, I actually ended up getting the podium. I actually ended up getting the third place, which I was extremely shocked about when they called out my name. But anyways, I want to get into today's episode. that was just a quick tangent. Today's episode, I'm going to start speaking about some of the things that will ensure a broker will be unsuccessful. This is based off a meeting that we had 3 weeks ago where the head of brokerage was saying, this is the sort of things that you need to do in order to be successful, what makes a successful broker. But I think like a lot of people know that, but a lot of people choose not to do it regardless. Everybody knows what to do. Like everybody knows that they should eat well. Everybody knows that they should go to the gym, but they choose not to do it. For me, I find it far more compelling to look at, okay, what would make an unsuccessful broker? What would guarantee failure? What if you did all of the time consistently that you would end up being unsuccessful? And together in a meeting that Friday, we just mapped out with the team kind of some of the key things, and people were giving their suggestions. And it was so funny that people were giving suggestions for the behaviors that they were actually enacting. So I think that gave a lot of clarity for people. And kind of looking through the lens of what they're doing. Now, it's all about repetition and ingraining those ideas. And it's not only from one training or one meeting that people are going to be like, oh yeah, now I know how to be a successful broker. But it's just like repetition, just keep speaking about these things that will guarantee failure, and people will tend to avoid them. And then obviously reinforcing the good behaviors, and then negatively reinforcing the bad behaviors. And that's essentially psychology and human behavior 101. So I want to get into it because I don't want to make this into an hour and a half. So the first kind of few things, I'm going to go through them one by one here, based on some of the things that I've taken out. And this will give you room. Like I want, if people hear this and they're listening to this and they're in real estate or about to go into real estate too, in everything that I speak about here, start trying to attribute it to your life and start trying to examine your life through some of the topics that have been spoken about, because there's no point in listening to this passively if you don't take anything from it and start taking some valuable insights and applying it to your life. So that's the whole point. It's not me here trying to make a lecture or trying to virtue signal that, I know what a successful or unsuccessful broker does. It's for you to deeper understand exactly what you're doing and examining your life through the same lens. If it's not real estate, it might be. I think this will guarantee failure across every facet of life. And I think within real estate, because it's such a performance-based role, that a lot of the things that would be in business, a lot of things that would be in your general life, once those are mirrored across, there's a clear correlation between how it can negatively impact not only your personal life, but also negatively impact your professional life in real estate, which I find fascinating. Anyways, I don't want to get down that rabbit hole. First thing we spoke about is the lack of discipline. And I'm going to... So when I say lack of discipline, I think it is also tied in very closely with the lack of inconsistency. Or sorry, the lack of consistency. So that would be inconsistency. So when I say lack of discipline, it's being able to do the difficult things consistently over a long period of time, not being able to focus on the things that you understand give you the highest returns, not being able to focus on the things that you know that you're avoiding, not being able to come in on time, not being able to show up when you're supposed to show up, not being able to focus on the one task, the lack of discipline in yourself to be able to do one thing that you told yourself that you were going to do. And this can be so evident. It's like knowing that you're supposed to do something and knowing that gives you the highest return. So property and real estate, being a real estate agent is super simple. Like you get the listings, you get the leads, you do the viewings, you close the deals. Now there is more there's more specifics within that there's more specifics within that somebody might be facing some issues within in order to define why they aren't closing deals. But it's fairly simplistic. Like if you were to get enough properties, you would get enough leads, you would be generating your leads inbound from these properties. Then from there, doing your viewings and then negotiating the deals through problem solving. Obviously, the first order of things is to reach out bound to people and figure out how to speak to people that you've never spoken to before and how to list properties that are currently available in the market for rent or for sale. Now, people understand the behaviors in order to do the thing to get them the listings, to do the viewings, to close the deals. But people who lack discipline lack the ability to do that consistently. So if I recommend to people to do 100 cold calls a day at a minimum, and I look at their cold calls throughout a full month, I can tell somebody who is not disciplined will look like, 10 calls one day, 80 calls another day, 5 calls another day, 120 calls another day. It's like there's no consistency. You're not disciplined enough in doing it consistently and doing it regardless every single day over a long period of time. I don't like seeing where like somebody on a Thursday might do like 200 calls and then like on the following, Monday they might do like 7. It's like, where is the consistency there? Like you're clearly lacking the discipline to do this every single day, because it's not that bad just to do one hard thing once a week, but doing a hard thing every single day, being your top priority, doing it straight away is far more difficult. Secondly, the kind of second point that I'm going to talk about is the inability to delay gratification. And this is the inability to delay the time in which that you demand to be rewarded, and blurring the lines with what you're doing and when you will be gratified, and looking at the instant gratification that seems like that you'll get it instantly. This, I can pull a story recently that personifies this so well, because there was a competition in work where you had to, I won't go into the details, but you essentially had to make these votes. And every vote you had to do, you had to take a screenshot of. And then everybody was told whoever has the highest number of these screenshots, they win a brand new iPhone 16. And this has a clear outcome. The outcome was, if I do this thing, I get an iPhone. If I do this thing and I come first, I get an iPhone. So the broker that ended up coming in the top 3 of that had a ridiculous amount of screenshots. And that broker cannot ever pick up the phone. He cannot be on time daily. He cannot put in the work. He cannot delay his gratification. He cannot do the hard work consistently. He has no lead management system. He does not update the CRM. He does not make his cold calls. He does not reply to leads. He does not focus in a specific area, and he's far more widespread. And I was like, how does this make sense? The person who has the worst like some of the worst habits and behaviors in this office has ended up winning this prize. And the conclusion that I got to was, well, the output was so obvious in this scenario that he was able to do the work because the clear outcome was there. But he can't do it in work. He can't do the calls. He can't do the lead follow up. He can't do the management of the CRM because the lines are blurry in the outcome. He doesn't know when he's going to be rewarded within real estate. He doesn't know when he's going to be rewarded for having good habits and behaviors and meeting his KPIs. But he knew when he was going to be rewarded, because if he just did more than everybody else, he would get an iPhone 16. So it's not a motivation thing. It's not a not being intelligent sort of thing. It's not a not knowing what to do and the right things to do are. It's just clearly a gratification issue, and knowing when he will be rewarded for that. And that is the inability to delay gratification, because here he knows when he's going to be gratified. Here he knows that he's going to get the thing straight away. Over here, he doesn't know. It's not obvious. It's not clear. It's hard to make the clear correlations between, if I make the calls, people will pick up and then they will answer and then they'll say that I can list. It's far more difficult. It's far more murky. It's far more, not clear compared to, well, if I just do the screenshots, I win an iPhone. And that was perfect for me. I was just like, this is absolutely perfect. I love this. So if that has explained delaying gratification, I hope it has. And this is for people who can't see past the initial reward, for people who can't see past the here and now, and can't see and aren't okay with accepting the fact that if I do this work, I might not be paid for it next week, next month, next 6 months for now. And I will do it regardless of when I'll be rewarded. But people who cannot delay gratification, they won't want to do stuff that they aren't instantly rewarded for. Moving on, the next one is what's going to tie in really nicely is short-term thinking. Short-term thinking will genuinely wreck and cause havoc to your real estate career. It kind of ties in nicely to the previous one. If you can't look past this first deal, if you can't look past the deal that you have here, and you're only thinking in short-term behaviors, you will display short-term actions. For example, if you are so focused on the amount of commission that you generate from your deals and you refuse to take on properties in your area that clearly are well priced, that clearly can be a listing and generate leads and clearly could be closed, and all you're doing is focusing on bigger tickets, straight out the bat with no experience, looking at bigger tickets, trying to sell a big penthouse off plan for 25 million and being like, that will reward me straight away. The people who are thinking along the lines, they can't look at the long term. They're not thinking in decades. They're not thinking in years. They're thinking in the here and now, this week. How much am I going to get paid? So they don't take on things that they deem as unattractive options, and because they can't look past it, because they can't look at the fact that, well, if I just close as many deals as possible, then I'll have the largest network, I will build the most relationships, and that will give me and generate me future luck in the future. That will generate me a lot of leverage for my future business. They can only see, the commission per deal. They can only see how much this person is going to pay me, rather than the unseen metrics of some of the value that they might provide to you in the future. The same goes for like people who decide to fuck each other over and go behind each other's back in terms of agents, backstabbing each other. It's just like, not only is that dishonest and that doesn't align with, what a good broker should look like, and it really shouldn't align with your morals, but it's also so short term, because they're so focused on making this commission, on taking this paycheck, on, taking the few extra 1,000 dirhams and putting in their back pocket. They can't see past that deal, and they can't see the fact that they are going behind the back of a broker who will refuse to work with them in the future. And they're looking at these deals as transactions, and they're not thinking again about, if I work with this person in the future, we will do more business and that will generate me more deals. All they can think about is this deal now. They can't think about the future potential deals that might arise from the result of not going behind this person's back. So that's another one for short-term thinking. The next one would be distraction. I think a distracted broker is extremely likely to be unsuccessful. In terms of distractions, what I mean by distractions in terms of meaningless conversations in the office, distractions in the sense of not being able to apply themselves at one specific task and not be distracted by their phone, not be distracted by what's going on in the office, what's the gossip, who's just walked in, who they can say hello to, who can they talk about the brunch that they've been to at the weekend. So that can cause a lot of time wasted. And within real estate, I've always said this, is like it matters so much what you decide to do with your time, because nobody is dictating what you should do, when you should do it, and why you should do it. You're not getting paid for it. So how you decide to spend your time is going to be extremely important. And people who keep getting distracted and keep not being able to apply themselves to one specific thing and block out all the noise tend to be the people who spend their time in the office sitting around, having a laugh, having a chat, like thinking they're having a great old time, looking forward to the weekend. But it's just like, you're only fooling yourself here, because whilst you're doing that, there's another broker who's not distracted whatsoever, and all they're doing is focusing on their time and not wasting any second or any minute of their time. They're not entertaining conversations outside their sphere of importance, and as a result, they are working far, far longer and far better than you. And the problem is because people look at work being done in terms of hours spent, not in the things that they decide to do. So you take two brokers and you're like, okay, these two people both have worked 10 hours or 11 hours or 12 hours, both have been in the office. And if we're looking in our employee mindset, well, they've done the same amount of work, but it's not the same amount of work because we're not in a salary position. We're not in a role in which that you get paid just for doing the work. You're not getting paid per unit of time. So the type of work that they're doing is completely different. Like, I mean, we're not using it, like, that's not a fair metric to look at it. It's like the quality of the work that they're doing and the time in which that they actually applied themselves within those 10 hours. Because this broker, the shittier broker over here, could spend the whole 10 hours being distracted, taking an hour for lunch, going out for coffee, chatting, having conversations, going on his phone, scrolling through WhatsApp, scrolling through Instagram, and then, saying that he's working just purely by being there. And then the other broker could be completely applied, could be focusing on calls, could be focusing on follow-ups, could be focusing on speaking to new people, could be focusing on putting up new listings, could be focusing on only speaking to people in the allowed times, or only following up with people on WhatsApp or replying to messages when they are allowed to do that in their block. So it can be just the difference is night and day. The next one is quite similar to the previous one, that is being unfocused. I'm going to speak about this in the broader sense, so to speak, and not just specifically in the office. Yeah, unfocused brokers just are like kind of distracted brokers because they can't focus on one task for a long period of time. But I'm going to speak about focus and unfocused and unspecialized broker, because when I first went into this company in May 2024, those brokers that would have a sale listing in JLT and a rental listing on the Palm and a rental listing in the Springs, and then another sale in downtown, and then an off-plan resale in Motor City. It's just like, how does this make sense? Like, how does this make sense? You are so unfocused on a specific area. You're wasting all your time with opportunities that you think are attractive on the outset, but because you're spread so thin, you are a jack of all trades and a master of none. You cannot focus on a specific area and specialize in a specific area and block out these opportunities, because I'm going to break it to you, not all opportunities are good opportunities. There's a reason why people are specialized in certain areas, and there's a reason why people are focused in special areas. The reason being is that I want to be the person that people look to when they think of this area. I want to be the guy who knows everything about the area, the buildings inside and out. I don't want to go into a viewing and not know where the pool, gym, or beach is. I want to know everything about it. I want to know the square footage off by heart. I want to know exactly where I'm going when I go into the apartment. I want to know where I'm coming out of when I go to the lift. I want it that I know this whole place inside and out, that I can actually provide some value, that I can dig deeper into people who are viewing it and actually provide more than just a broker that would be opening a door. Meanwhile, you have your unfocused broker taking 2 hours out of their day to go from where their office is, going over to an area that they don't even know, trying to speak to security, trying to figure out how to get in, trying to figure out where the pool is, taking the clients, only having one option. The clients being like, what other options do you have? They're like, I don't have anything. I'm not this specialized broker. And being like, yeah, I don't really have anything else. I didn't really know this. I didn't know that. Let me double check. I'll check this information for you. I'll get back to you. And then they go back to the office, and then they start working with other brokers, or they take up their spreadsheet and try and speak good owners in that community. You get my drift. Then they get completely distracted. Then they get completely unfocused, and their eye is completely off the ball because they're chasing this opportunity. They're chasing this rabbit. They're chasing this thing that they think is an attractive opportunity, but it's just a wild goose chase, and they're just chasing that down, and they don't realize that they're being taken away from their area specialization. They don't realize that they're not closing deals because the deals that they could be closing aren't closed. Hence, they don't know that they're missing out on anything. And all the time it is a ticking time bomb because they're racing against the clock until their funds dry out and they essentially end up not having any money. And if they start getting focused too late, then it's just too late. Next, what is the next one? Let me see. The next one, not having any product. So not having any product, what I mean by that is not having anything in your shop window, not having any listings online, not being able to generate business, because then people don't know you exist. This will ensure failure 100%. What I mean, like, if you don't have any listings, you're not going to close deals and you're not going to make any money whatsoever. But some people still fail to register this when they're sitting there with 2 or 3 listings being like, yeah, they're 3 good listings, but it's just like, well, that's not increasing your chances to be lucky. You know, if I wanted to enter into the lottery and increase the chances that I'm going to win, I'm going to enter in a lot more times than the person who just enters in once and is like, this is the winning ticket. So it's like, okay, let me try and enter into this as many times as possible. Let me try and get as many listings online as possible. Let me, create this storefront of people or of products so that people can come in and see how many different products there are. And somebody might ask me a question about one. And it's far more likely than someone who has just got one in their shop window being like, this is lovely. This is what so well priced. You should come see this. But nobody can see it because it's drowned out by all of the other products in the market. So it's like, you need to have a good market share in your community. You need to have a good market share on the listing portals or people won't know that you exist. You need to have products available, because if you go on to Property Finder and the listing portals, you'll see hundreds of thousands of listings. So it's like, you're not gonna stand out with good photos. It's just not possible. You need to have a significant market share. You need to have significant market share in the community that you specialize in, so that if people search that building, if people search that sub community, it's like your face and name keeps popping up, and the likelihood that people will click on that, the chances are significantly increased. And that's to say that just because you have a listing online and somebody inquires on it doesn't mean that they're interested in that listing, specifically in rentals as well. I used to always assume that just because somebody inquired on a listing, it meant that they're telling me, I'm a tenant and I'm interested in renting, not I want this property. Even though they might say that they want the property, it's just like, no, we're not going to do that. I'm going to strip this down to basics. I'm going to find out where you currently are, how long you've got left until you need to move. What have you seen so far? How familiar are you with the area? What exactly do you need to rent? What is important to you? Ask the questions instead of just waiting for them to turn up to the property and just like, ta-da, here you go. Are you going to rent it? So just look at listings as a lead generation. Don't look at them as properties listed online. If you look at them as lead generation and you qualify every single person that comes in and make sure that you're with them through their tenant's journey, you're guaranteed to close something, instead of doing a one and done viewing and then expecting them to close and never following up with them again. I'm going to spitball another one that I haven't included here. So I'm going to speak about not following up, just because I spoke about it. So a broker who doesn't follow up, I think this is so obvious that a broker who doesn't follow up is not going to be successful. But how many follow-ups would that look like, in the consistency of follow-ups? And I'm not saying like it's so obvious that somebody who doesn't follow up with somebody after the initial inquiry won't close. But even somebody who would follow up once or twice after the initial inquiry, they're still not going to be a successful broker if they expand that out and do that multiple times. It's so bad that I've seen some situations where I've gone through leads in someone's system and asked them to pull up their phone and be like, okay, put in this number. And they put in this number on their phone. And then the last message that they sent them was the initial response to their inquiry, and there was no follow-ups. And I was like, why have you done that? Oh, they didn't reply. To one message, they didn't reply. So if I was looking for cars and I was trying to buy my cars, I'd inquire on a few, and then whoever catches me first and is engaging in a conversation, then I'll proceed with them. And then if somebody follows up the next day, I'll be like, oh yeah, this is what I've seen, this is the update, this is what I'm looking for, do you have anything? But And it's the same go if I was renting properties. I'm going to inquire on a few at the same time, because I'm not spending my whole day on Property Finder. I'm going to go on and log on for like 2 to 3 minutes, inquire on a few, speak to some of the area specialists so that they can show me all of the available options, so that I don't have to waste the time going through Property Finder. So if I do that, it's logical to assume that other people will do that. So why are we just replying to them with the initial response and expecting them to reply? Like a week later, the person who inquired is just gonna be like, "Hello, it's me again. I'm just following up in regards to my inquiry. Um, I'm looking for this, this, this. I'm able to move in this, this, this. I'm able to, pay this, and I'm gonna make an offer on the property." Like, it doesn't happen. So like, not only do you need to follow up, but have a clear system in which that you follow up. And the kind of thing that is going to be a resounding kind of answer here is going to be a proper CRM. Every company will have one. I don't care how intricate it is. I don't care if you use any of the names out there. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter at all. This product, this one, if it's built by yourselves, it doesn't matter to me. If it's got a follow-up function and something that will remind you that you have to speak to people that you self-selected, then it's good enough for me. So if somebody inquires, then it goes into your CRM straight away. And then following them up on a consistent basis would be a phone call on the first day. Follow up on messages, take the necessary action to bring them to viewings. If they're not replying, then just a follow up every 2 to 3 days, phone calls every 2 to 3 days. And then from there, kind of spread it out. If after, a week that they're not replying to any of your messages or calls, then I would leave it to once a week, every week for about 8 weeks. And if they still don't reply, I didn't stop messaging someone until they replied. And then when they replied and they're like, "Okay, I actually found something," it's like, "Okay, thanks for telling me. I want to find out the situation. I want to collect the data. I want to find out that people have rented, and I'll follow up with you regardless." Now, some people might see that as a bit of a waste of time, but when I've perfected the art of my CRM and following up with people with a click of a button, it's really not that deep. So bad follow-ups, no follow-ups will guarantee your failure in this industry. No self-direction. This is a very pertinent one. I think I've talked about this so much, and I've talked about this actually in the last episode. If you cannot decide the most important things to do, if you cannot do something without being told to do it, if you can't creatively think of outside of the box ideas, not even if you can't just do something without being told to do it, then you are not self-directed, and you shouldn't be a real estate agent. You should be in an office pushing paper and just do as you're told kind of thing. Like, and people think they're self-directed, and you have to take your own initiative in this. No one is going to be telling you exactly what to do. There will be guidance there. In some companies like my own, I will be lending support. On a Monday, I'll be telling you the most important things you need to focus on for a week. But if you don't do them, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I won't know. I will be able to see if you're not doing them, but it's going to be on a public display. I'm not going to be constantly following up with you every 15 minutes or every hour or every day telling you that you should be doing this, that, and the other. It's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen in any sort of real estate company. The final one is bad problem solving. I think problem solving is like one of the key things in which that can determine good brokers from bad. And it's like, there's so many unseen optics and so many unseen metrics that determine people's success far more than what we acknowledge and what we can see. But I think one of them is bad problem solving is definitely going to guarantee failure. A good problem solver doesn't look at every problem as a catastrophe. Every problem as I need to call my manager. Every problem is like, okay, the world is going to explode if I don't fix this. And a good problem solver is going to look at these problems as opportunities. It's going to look at these as hurdles and not as objections. Because if I'm trying to negotiate a contract, if I'm trying to negotiate a deal, and there's little sticking points and disagreements and requirements that somebody might have, all I can do is just deal with those problems myself and handle those obstacles and overcome them. without having to involve the other party. I can nip things in the bud before it's going to be sent over to the other party, because we're brokers, we're brokering a deal, we're representing both parties, and it is our job to nip some complaints in the bud and solve some problems before it gets to the other person, because that will ensure a smooth transaction. And people who are successful brokers have perfected the art of problem solving so much to a degree that they don't look at it like problem solving. They treat every problem as just another situation, and they just take it as it comes. And no problem is going to cause significant stress and angst. It's like, okay, what are the solutions? I don't care about whose fault it is. I don't care about who's in the wrong. I don't care about what happened in the past. What are we going to do to fix it? This week has been massive for me, with the amount of problems that have been faced within our team, from tenants, from unhappy tenants, from unhappy owners, from negotiations, from people ghosting us, and then some in my own personal life where I forgot my bike in Ras Al Khaimah, and like, I just kept reminding myself, based off something that I heard recently, that problems are just opportunities in disguise. Problems are just opportunities in disguise. Problems are just opportunities in disguise. Third time. I love that one. Anytime I've got a problem now, it's like, okay, good. Okay, good. What are we going to do to fix it? How are we going to look at this? What is the outcomes? I don't care whose fault it is. I don't care the story. Please don't spend 15 minutes telling me the whole situation. Tell me the problem. Tell me the potential solutions, and then together we'll work in order to fix that. And it's gotten to a stage where, people in work could be asking me, I don't understand how you're not stressed by this. I don't understand how, you're not being affected by this. I don't understand how you take it in your stride. It's like, because I just have solved so many different problems that I've just so used to it. I don't get an emotional response to it. The event is the event. How we choose to perceive that is going to affect how we feel. But I'm just going to look at them. I don't get excited by problems, don't get me wrong, because sometimes like, oh, here we fucking go. But I'm just going to fix it and not get stressed. Like, even with my bike, I was not rattled whatsoever. And it was only a friend pulling me up on this yesterday. Like, I wasn't rattled at all. I was just like, and that was just unconscious. It wasn't a conscious decision to be like, this is, me not getting, affected by this problem. And it's how I interpret a problem. It's how I interpret an event that matters. Just like, at that stage, from so many reps of dealing with issues, that it's just like, yeah, it is what it is. Let me just see how I can fix it. Who do I need to speak to in order to get my bike back? Who are the event coordinators? Can I go here? Can I go there? Can I call this guy? Can I call that guy? Yesterday, I forgot my bike again. It's becoming his friend. That's why it's behind me there. So if I just look back, it doesn't disappear. I forgot it when I was doing some viewings, and I drove back to the office without it. It was on the Palm, and it put on another 45 minutes on my journey. And I just looked back, and my bike was in the back of the car, and I was like, oh yeah, it's not there. So then I just drove back, and I wasn't really unhappy. I wasn't really upset. Like, what does that matter? Same with little things. Like, I mean, a drink spilling on me. It's just like, oh, that's spilled. So I just picked it up and fixed it. Or like, a tenant sends me like an awful email saying they're going to pursue legal action to our team if we don't do X, Y, and Z. And just like, okay. And then just replying with an email, and then them just not responding or taking any action because they're clearly in the wrong. But it's just like dealing with them and just getting used to it through reps. And that's the only way you're going to be able to deal with problems. If you're in this industry, or it's your first few weeks, then your first few problems are going to be catastrophic. They will feel awful. They'll feel like the world is coming down, the sky is falling down. But it's just understanding that, like, after a while, the solutions will become so clear because of the repetitions that you've put in and the amount of times that you've solved a problem that is quite similar to this. It doesn't have to be the same problem, but a problem that's quite similar. It'll just become second nature in terms of solving those problems. So problem solving with bad situations, but also problem solving with tenants or buyers in order to try and find them a solution. Problem solving exactly what they need and getting them what they want, and trying to fix those problems. I think that is a massive factor. So that is my take on what makes a successful an unsuccessful broker. What will guarantee failure? So to recap, what would guarantee failure in brokerage? If you had a lack of discipline, inability to delay gratification, if you were short-term thinking, if you were distracted, if you're unfocused, if you do not have product in your shop window, if you are a bad problem solver, if you have no self-direction, if you cannot follow up, then you will be washed up in this industry, and then you will fail in this industry, and then you will guarantee your failure for sure. So if we look at those things and we agree that those are the things that will guarantee failure, then just look at the inverse, look at the opposite, look at the thing that is the opposite to all of these below, the behaviors that are not those, and you're going to be on the right track to be successful. If we avoid the things that will guarantee failure and don't do them, then by proxy, we'll be moving in the right direction. And you will be successful. Because, as I said at the very start of this, it's not overly complicated. People tend to overcomplicate it. I just wish I knew some of these things before I had started. And then I wish I had picked up some of these things sooner than I have, because, yeah, it's been a long path. And I think at the same time, you will only learn these lessons yourself after you've walked the path. No amount of listening to podcasts is going to teach the lessons that I'm trying to teach here. So yeah, in hindsight, I've learned the lessons, but I'm convinced that until you make those mistakes yourselves, you really won't learn. Anyways, I hope you've enjoyed this episode a bit longer than usual, and I will see you in the next one.